Hello and welcome to another Writerly Witterings with me, Michael Jex, the tea drinking author. Cheers. Now, going back to my roots slightly and talking about this little sweetie. But first, at the back end of this video, because so many of you say you really like the videos of the pups, there will be another video of the pup. But I'm also going to put up a rather silly little video, which is me trying to do a painting. Purely because I've had some interest in the idea of doing more about walking around, talking about Dartmoor, doing paintings. And what I'm thinking I might do is some more time-lapse videos where I show what I do while I'm out, and possibly a voiceover at the same time so that you can get an impression of what I'm using, what I'm seeing. I know it doesn't appeal to everyone, so I'm going to tag that on at the very end. But if you're interested in that sort of thing, do please let me know, because it's only when people give me feedback that I know what I should be doing. So if you could, any comments, positive or negative, in the comments down below. And now, back to this. Okay, so I thought it would be interesting to look at some of my older equipment, and I can't say much about it yet, but I'm involved in a project where I'm helping design a pen with Conway Stewart, and I had the idea that it could be based around this little darling. Can't talk about it, it's all subject to contract and all various other things, but let's talk about this pen and why I like it and what actually makes it not entirely practical for the project I'm looking at. So this is the Model 58. It's a Conway Stewart pen. It is very small. He says, thinking I forgot to get my ruler out. Right, very small. It is in English or American, about 5¼ inches long, or in European and others, 13 centimeters. And when you take the cap off, it is about 4¾ inches to the end of the nib, and about 12 centimeters. So it's a small pen. If you try to hold it in your hand, for me, it is just okay. I say just okay, it fits my hand perfectly comfortably. You can of course post it. I hate posting pens because I'm always convinced I'm going to scratch and make a mess of the top of it. But if you want to post a pen, it'll post. That's nice. I love it in black and gold. It's got these 3 rings, it has a gold clip, and it has a lever. Because this is a pen you can't just open up to have a look inside. As you can tell, I'm really well prepared for this video. I've got all of my props hidden away under piles of paperwork. Here's a Kaweco. It's a Kaweco Sport. In your pocket, it is hugely smaller. When you take it open, it is considerably larger, but still not the same size as the Conway Stewart 58. Now, the reason why I got the Kaweco out is because this is a classic example of a modern style of pen. It has a space here in which you can put an ink cartridge, lots of different types of international ink cartridge, but you can also fit a cartridge converter. That is a simple piston that fits into most pens, and you fill the pen by twiddling a knob at the end. It squirts out all the air and then sucks up all the ink. This, however, is a simpler approach. You simply dunk the nib into some ink, pull this lever out all the way. Inside here there is a little sack. They used to be made of rubber, but now I think they're some sort of silicone variant. And there's a flat plate. So if you can imagine, as you pull the lever up, it pushes this plate against the rubber sack and basically compresses the whole thing. And then when you push the lever down, it comes away, and the sack is obviously now got its own vacuum inside it, so it sucks ink up. Ridiculously simple, really rather elegant. I love it. There is one downside, and that is you can never tell how much ink you've got in your pen. So what you have to do is just top it up regularly. Now, this pen in particular I adore. I think the looks are classic. I do love my little lever action filler. I love the fact that the clip is really quite robust. Conway Stewart's have got very strong clips, it's good. The top finial is just a sort of squat cone, as is the base, so it sort of ties up nicely. I like the fact that the barrel has this slight taper going down, which is nice. I also like the fact that it has a flare at the front end of the section, so your fingers can't with ease slide straight down onto the nib and make a mess. The nib is one of the older style Conway Stewart nibs, which means it's fairly short, but I love it. This one's a broad and it writes absolutely superbly, it always has. Very nice smooth action, and I think very elegant looks with that old-fashioned Conway Stewart sort of branding on it. But for this project I'm looking at, what I need is going to be something that's got a wider top, because we're going to put a logo there. That's the idea. And I was talking to Alistair, the managing director of Conway Stewart, and he said, really, the 58 is not the right sort of pen for that. You want something that's got a bit more acreage on the top so that you can put a logo up there. And we were chatting around things, and I think we've come up with a different pen type of body that would be an elegant solution. But I thought it'd be worthwhile just looking at this again, because it is one of those pens that I find an absolute joy to use. And I was thinking, well, what could I talk about with this pen? And I thought, well, what's my favourite ink that goes in it? And this is one of those movable feasts, but I have to admit that just now, the ink I really adore in it is this, Diamine's Sepia. Why? Well, let me just get a William Hanna notebook and I'll have a little scribble in here and explain my feelings. Because you see, I should apologise, I haven't got an overhead camera today. I've just decided to start working on this video because I've got so much work to do, basically. So, first of all, let's fill it. Now, I did explain briefly how you fill it, but it doesn't hurt to actually demonstrate, does it? So, here's your bottle of ink, here's your pen. What I'm going to have to do is try to work out how best to do this without squirting ink all over my desk. So, if I do it like this, that might work. Now, with one finger, I am pulling the lever out. There we go, the lever is now down. So what I'm going to do now is just drop the pen into the ink. Going to make an awful mess here, I can tell, but it's going to be the easiest way to demonstrate it. And then what you do not do is flick the lever back and lift it straight out of the ink. Why? for the simple reason that if you do that, you're not giving the rubber silicone, whatever it is, sac inside here time to suck the ink up. Because what you've got to bear in mind is that the vacuum inside a rubber sac is not particularly strong. It's not like using a Visconti or a Pineda vacuum fill pen where there's a sudden snap that pulls all this ink up because you've got a massive vacuum inside a rigid body. This is a floppy body. It's a bit like mine. So what you've got to do is let the lever go and then just leave it in there for a few seconds. If you don't, when you pull it out, you'll hear this because all of a sudden the sac is sucking in air from the atmosphere instead of worrying about sucking in a thick gloopy ink. If you just leave it in there for a few seconds, it takes a bit longer to suck up ink, but that's fine. It'll do it. That'll be full now. So before anything else, get a cloth and wipe down that section before you get ink all over your fingers, as I did when opening the ink bottle, because that's what pen and ink's all about, isn't it? It's making a mess. It's what I'm good at anyway. So here we go. I've now got ink over that finger as well. It's actually because I think this bottle has a slight difficulty. The seal on the cap has never worked particularly well. It got unglued, and so every now and again when I open it I get ink all over the edge of the bottle. So word to the wise, when you've filled your pen, give the bottle a good wipe round. So, Sepia. Now, this pen actually is the special edition, the Indiana Jones version, which was taken from the film Indiana Jones and wasn't Temple of Doom, The Holy Grail, his last crusade. And there was a particular line in that when Indiana Jones's father and friend were in a tank, I think, or an armoured car. They'd been kidnapped by some nasty Nazis, and to distract the guards so they could defend themselves, they got the pen out and squirted ink in the German's face before hitting him over the bonce with a baseball bat or something, and came up with the beautiful quotation, "Don't you see, it proves that the pen is mightier than the sword," which was very appealing, and it worked very nicely in the film. And I've never tried squirting this in someone's eyes. I don't think I will either, because they might damage my pen. But as a result, this became a limited edition. This is number 9 of 100, made in England, and it is the Indiana Jones pen is mightier than the sword version. And it's a lovely pen to use. Perhaps I should have not gone for a broad nib, but instead should have looked at more of a fine nib, because a finer nib on a pen that you're going to carry in your pocket all the time maybe makes a little more sense. But I have to admit, I use this all the time for signing cards, for making notes, for all sorts, because it's just such a light, convenient pen to have in your pocket. And the clip means it doesn't go anywhere. It's reliable. Of course, it has got a slight downside that is convenient with something like a Kaweco or any other modern type of pen, to be able to refill it on the go just by shoving a standard universal ink cartridge in there. And because of that, Conway Stewart, I believe, are making these now either with the lever action or with a cartridge converter inside. So you can make your choice, take your pick. And that's enough of me wittering. So, one thing I have to say is, if you put the pen's nib in facing slightly away. So if you put it in with the clip here and the nib perpendicular to the clip, at 90 degrees to the nib anyway, and then lock it, you'll see that the nib and the lever tie up perfectly. And that is something I learned to do because I thought that looks really elegant. If you ever buy a lever action pen, do not use it like that. Why, you're saying? Well, it's the biggest risk of one of these pens is you get your shirt, you shove your pen in quickly, and the lever just manages to snag on the material of your shirt and pulls out and squirts an entire barrel full of ink into the cap, which isn't completely waterproof, which will then leak out all over your shirt. So what I do, having realized that was a risk, is now I have the line of the clip and I put the nib in following that line, which means that when it's done, lo and behold, the clip is now at 90 degrees to the lever. That means I can put it in my pocket at any time, fully secure in the knowledge that I'm not going to catch that bally lever anywhere and have ink leak out all over my shirt pocket. So, while talking, I did this. Now you can see here, gorgeous shading, and I do love the simple Diamine inks. Look at the TH there, lovely plain pastel coloured top of the H going down to quite a, I'm going to use this here, so nice and dark at the bottom, nice and light at the top of each of these letters. Look here. So this sepia has got gorgeous shading. If you like shading, it works really well. It's also, I think, one of the nicest orange type colours that I've possessed. I like things like KWZ Honey, but it's just a little bit harsher in colour than this. It's got a sort of, how can I put it? There's an earthiness to it that doesn't quite work for me. Just trying to go through my different colours to find my KWZ Honey. Here we go. Now, Butterscotch, which was a limited edition ink, was absolutely glorious. This is KWZ Honey. Now it's going to be a miracle if you can see this properly in this light, because it's one of those fairly dark, dim, greyish sort of days. So I'm just going to bring out a little lamp, and you can see possibly that it's not an unpleasant colour. I like it. I particularly like the fact that because it's KWZ, it gives off this lovely aroma, but it's sort of got a slight greenish tinge, I think. And then when you compare it to the sepia, sepia is much more of an orangey brown, which is possibly closer to Butterscotch than to KWZ itself. So for my money, Diamine still wins the day. I love that colour. I love the reliability of the ink. I really like the shading that you get, which gives you such a gorgeous bit of variation with your writing. It just looks nicer. And there I think I'll have to leave it, because I've got to get back now to the copy edit of my next book. I've got to just knocked all of my files on the floor. I've got to get back to the copy edit of the next book, which is going to be Death Comes in Threes, starring Jack Blackjack in his favourite location, Tudor London. Then I've got to get on with Piacenza, which is the next book I've got to write, which is my latest Art of Murder Nick Morris series, with dear old Nick being given a chance of going out for a holiday in the sun, as he thinks, but he discovers a dead body, obviously. And that's closely followed by the book I've got to write before the end of January, which is a collaborative book with someone else, all about the opera world. So I've got a fair amount I've got to get on with now. So why am I here whittering at you? I don't know. I think I'd better crack on with some work. Thanks a lot for watching. I hope that was interesting. If you enjoyed the channel, then do please hit the like button. Don't forget to subscribe. If you want to support it in other ways, you can do I don't know, buy me a coffee or a Patreon link. And for now, that's about it really. Thanks a lot for watching, and I'll speak to you soon. Take care.